And now we will get in to the defensive side of the ball, which is a little...
I don't want to interrupt you, but we have a few comments on offense.
Okay.
About offense before we go. Take a few minutes, I think. First of all,
whether in the
Cyber Sophist, I think I'm saying it right. I have a hard time reading sometimes. Says, when will Jeff Hireman finally assert himself as a big playmaker? And I think that we just got done talking about the offense, and this is supposed to be their best player, right? Or one of them. We haven't really heard or seen much from him. Granted, he was injured, but he's played now. When are we going to see something out of him?
I think we could see it soon. It seems like they maybe use the double tight end look a little bit more. That was something we've been talking about since the spring about they have two great tight ends. Urban Meyer talks about it all the time. I think you can create mismatches with those guys, whether in the
more and more.
I think you can stack things on one side with them or in the pass game. You mentioned the pass to Nick Vannett. I think they're both good pass catchers. You know, it's cliche to talk about throwing to the tight end. I do think they can work the middle of the field. Those are some more difficult throws to make, but you mentioned the throw to Vannett. If J.T. Barrett can make those kind of throws, I think we could see Jeff Hireman and Nick Vannett both emerge more.
Yeah, and I talked about the jump balls that J.T. seems to be more comfortable throwing. He threw on to Jeff Hireman in the third quarter against Maryland, and Hireman did a great job of adjusting to the ball in the air, stepping in front of his guy. He was like fully extended and made a great catch. It was one of the better catches in the game. So I think we're going to see more and more. He was hurt, and now he's getting back, and I think he's going to be used more.
That catch kind of reminded me of the Ballard catch from the Rose Bowl. I don't know if it was quite as extravagant and not obviously as big of a stage, but I thought it was a really good catch. One more. Did anyone seriously think that Ezekiel Elliott would be this good this soon?
I'm still not 100% sure how good Ezekiel Elliott is. I'm surprised a little bit by how well he's run through contact lately. I mean, he says he's not the same kind of power back that Carlos Hyde is, but I didn't think he could. You get in his career a 20 carry a game guy. I don't think that's what they want him to be, but he has done that already this year. I think he has been more physical and better getting yards on his own than I thought he might be.
Yeah, I agree. I thought he'd be more of a get it outside guy, and he's done that a bit, particularly on that option that they've had a lot of success with. But I've been really impressed with his ability to run it up the middle and break tackles and get 3-4 extra yards a pop on some plays.
Okay, defense.
Defense. A little more interesting to talk about. It's not so based on one guy, but the overall so far, the Buckeyes are 35th in the nation in points allowed. They're giving up basically 21 points per game. That's 7th in the Big Ten. It's funny, Michigan State is barely ahead of Ohio State in that category. However, Michigan State played Oregon, and that sort of skewed things. Michigan State gave up 46 points against Oregon. Ohio State really hasn't played an offense like that. Virginia Tech's offense was good on that night and made Ohio State pay for mistakes. I feel like they haven't played a great balanced offense so far. So as you look at this defense, what grade do you give this defense?
C.
Extrapolate.
Yeah, I'm just like, actually my wheels were turning a little bit because I don't know, maybe even a C-. Because we spent all offseason, all preseason, they made a new hire in Chris Ash to be in charge of the secondary, talking about how the defensive breakdowns in the back end of that defense was the reason why they didn't go to a championship last year, wasn't the reason they won the Big Ten last year, and that was the biggest thing that this team had all offseason to work on. Yet, as we sit here right now, almost halfway through the regular season, that is still their now, and it's still happening, and they didn't give up any huge touchdown plays against Maryland, which I guess is a good thing, but on the first pass by C.J. Brown, it might have been a touchdown if he would have just made the throw. Yeah. I mean, the breakdown happened. They didn't pay for it, but the breakdown happened. And I don't know if one game is enough for me to think that they're moving forward from that problem. And until they get a glaring weakness that will cost them against a very good team, C might even be too high.
I mean, the one thing is, I feel like they're taking some more aggressive risks and maybe giving up big plays as part of that. The biggest problem
should have given up
passes they gave up without challenging things that much. So if they have to make that trade-off, okay. I think they're still progressing even in that part of it, though.
Yeah, I think the thing that sticks out to me is the defense. I don't think that the defense is really – they have one loss, and I don't think that loss was the fault of the defense. I think that loss was the fault of the offense. I agree with Ari in his assessment of the defense. I think they're about a C at this point, and I think it's because if you look at the numbers, people might look at it and say they're a little bit better. I think they're a top 50 defense right now in terms of – said they're a top 20 or 35th in the country in terms of points per game. But when you look at the yardage they've allowed, and I think they're 13th against the pass. If you take away the Navy game, they're 74th against the pass, which is a huge discrepancy in the passing numbers. So I think the passing defense has not been what it was advertised to be coming into this season. I still think there's a lot of holes there. I think, like you said, Doug, they've done a better job of maybe cutting off the short stuff, but the short stuff, I think, is, especially against the teams that they've played so far, the short stuff was going to kill you. It was the deep stuff, like they gave up against Cincinnati and probably should have given up. Brown been able to complete a pass or two. And the other thing about the defense, I think that leads me to give them a C, is the pass rush. I don't think has been very good this year outside of Joey-Bosa. I think I expected more from the offensive or defensive line. Obviously, Noah Spence isn't there, but with the guys that they have, and you have Michael Bennett, and you have Joey-Bosa, and you have Adolphus Washington, a line that's considered by many to be one of the best in the country, I think to this point they should have been able to do more.
What are people saying here, Ari?
Yeah, there's a few things, and I just want to do the Joey-Bosa celebration one time. Sorry about the technical difficulties. And they covered it up. Okay, well, somebody asked, is Joey-Bosa stoppable? I think that the answer is no. So I'm talking about him. Is there anything else you want to add about Bosa?
Well, I think we'll get into him more when we talk about a defensive MVP. I mean, he came out in that brace for the game against Maryland. You have to account for him, which is why I thought the Noah Spence on one side, Joey-Bosa on the other side would have been so great for this defensive line, because I don't think you really can block either of those guys one-on-one. But there was a play, I think, against Maryland where they shift their defensive line on third down. I think Joey-Bosa ended up over a guard, and he was in the backfield in half a second. It's like you can't do that. So if you stop him, if you have a tackle and a guard double teaming him, or a running back or a tight end helping on him, but I don't think you can count on blocking him one-on-one.
Okay, enough on Joey, because we're going to get to him when we get to the defensive MVP. And I don't think it's all three of us, maybe not. But do you see Raekwon McMillan being the full-time starter soon?
I think there's a lot of things involved with that. I mean, I think they like Raekwon McMillan out in space more. That's why he's played some games where there's more passing involved. They're going to play him more than Curtis Grant. I think Curtis Grant can still play well against running teams. I think there are things there that Curtis Grant is playing better than he has in his career. He's earned some things as a senior, as a captain. He's, by all accounts, done a great job helping develop Raekwon McMillan. So I don't know. I mean, I think you got to get the best players on the field, yes. I think Curtis Grant is good enough to still play for this team, though. And I think no matter what Raekwon McMillan does, you could make a point that Curtis Grant deserves. McMillan may play more often, but I don't think Curtis Grant deserves to disappear from this defense.
It's kind of like the basketball team a little bit, where it's like, don't get caught up with who starts the game, because 4 minutes into it, someone else might check in. And if he's playing the majority of the game, I mean, he played a lot.
He played a lot.
Yeah. He played a lot, and he made plays.
Yeah.
I don't think we're ever going to get to the point either where it's Raekwon McMillan all the time. I think you made a good point, Doug, about Curtis Grant against running offenses. I think he's better suited at this point for a running offense than Raekwon McMillan is. He's bigger. I think he's a tougher guy to get out of the middle. So I think we're going to see them both. You might see Raekwon more, but I wouldn't expect Curtis Grant to disappear.
Do you think, one more question, do you think that the passing defense already, but do you think that's the only reason why Ohio State wasn't picked over Michigan State as the Big Ten favorite this year? And do you think that that is going to be the reason why Ohio State will likely be underdogs in that game November 8th?
I don't think it's the only reason. I think Michigan State's more complete on both sides of the ball right now with the way Connor Cook's developed. They're developing some receivers, Jeremy Langford running the ball for Michigan State, and then we know Michigan State's defense. I think they're more complete and more veteran maybe on both sides of the ball. I don't think it's just that one thing for Ohio State.
No, I think it's part of it. But Michigan State beat Ohio State on the neutral field last year in the Big Ten championship game. Michigan State should be favored against Ohio State at home.
But it is a stark fly zone with Michigan State that their secondary is the thing that people talk about almost the most. Meanwhile, it's the thing that is Ohio State's biggest problem. So I'm going to give them a C as well. C for the defense. We want your grades on this defense. And now we're going to move to some individual honors.